Let's fix your flexes, fellas. Today we're going to be breaking down 10 sneaky starts that you guys can throw into your lineup for week 6 that are in good spots. We break it down 3 wide receiver flex options, 3 running back flex options, and streaming quarterbacks, 2 of them, and 2 streaming tight ends as well. So if you guys have some tough lineup decisions and you have some of these players, feel free to leave me any questions down below. I'll answer as many as I possibly can. You can also get our rankings, which are linked down below in the pinned comment as well. Starting with the wide receiver position, we're going to talk about my must-start flex option number 1. And just so you guys know, whoever I have at 1 would be ranked higher for me than who I have at 3. So in case you do have multiple of these guys, I would go with my number 1 over my number 3. And the first guy we're going to talk about here is Darnell Mooney at the Carolina Panthers this week for the Atlanta Falcons. They have such an easy matchup. You look at Darnell Mooney, what he's done the last couple of weeks. He's been a 24% target share on the season. He was a top 2 wide receiver on the week last week against the Buccaneers on Thursday night. The Falcons are implied for 26.5 points per Vegas this week. It's a 47-point over-under. The second fastest combined pace of play between the Panthers offense and the Falcons offense. There should be a lot of plays in this game. Yesterday's video was me going through every single matchup, and I kind of outlined how great the matchup is for Atlanta. And Cousins has a top 2 matchup. Bijan has a top 2 matchup, or Algier if Bijan isn't able to play. Then when you look at the receivers, Carolina ranks 22nd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. And not only that, but they are 24th in DVOA, specifically to number 2 wide receivers. So Drake London, of course, the clear alpha, he's going to receive some of the defensive attention. They are actually top 15 against number 1 wide receivers, the Carolina Panthers, but number 2 wide receivers is where they've been burned. So maybe Mooney has the better game between him and London. So must start wide receiver number 2. We have Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears. This matchup for the Bears stacks up super, super well. The Jaguars defense is so bad against the pass right now. They are 32nd against quarterbacks. They are 32nd against wide receivers. They are 30th against running backs as well. So I don't think the Bears are going to have any problem moving the ball on offense. Rome Odunze has had great usage so far. He just hasn't had any real big games outside of week 3 when he was a top 7 receiver on the week. And he's playing a little bit up and down, which is understandable for a rookie in the first half of his rookie season. This one is one of those confidence boosters, though. You go up against a really bad defense. It's in London, which always, sometimes throws a wrench into things. But I really like Rome Odunze to have a big performance this week. Maybe go send out some offers for him if you don't have him. I actually traded for him twice. In our Flock League, I traded for him from Danny with Dontavian Wicks and Wan'Dale Robinson, and I traded Michael Pittman shortly before he was put on IR, or before all this injury stuff came out in my home league. I traded for Rome Odunze as well. So definitely, if you have him, fire him up into your lineup. The third wide receiver we're going to talk about here is Jalen Tolbert, Cowboys wide receiver versus the Detroit Lions this week. Tolbert is a good play when it's me talking about him and not Danny. Of course, everybody would expect Danny to be saying he's a good play. The Lions defense ranks 26th against fantasy wide receivers in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position, and very similar to Darnell Mooney, they have been much better against number 1 receivers. They are 9th against opposing number 1s in DVOA, but they are 25th against opposing number 2. So if CeeDee Lamb is going to be taken out of the game plan via, shaded coverage, or however they plan to do that, Brandon Cooks, of course, is out for the next couple of games on IR, and Jalen Tolbert posted 21.7 PPR points in week 5 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and actually scored the game-winning touchdown, had a 26% target share in that game. He is a very fine start this week as a top 35 or so receiver in a game that has a 52-point over-under, which is first on the entire slate, and 78% of the cash is on the over in this game, which is top 3 on the slate as well. So I really love pretty much a lot of plays from this game, but specifically Jalen Tolbert if you guys need some wide receiver help. Moving into the running back position, Trey Sermon is my number 1 sneaky start running back this week. Jonathan Taylor dealing with that high ankle sprain, not expected to play this week according to a lot of what I've seen from fantasy docs, and also some rumors surfacing, and the fact that he has not practiced Wednesday or Thursday. We have not seen Friday's practice report yet, but I imagine he will be out for this game. Of course, if he is not, then Trey Sermon is not a sneaky start for me. Last week, we saw Sermon catch 6 passes from Joe Flacco and find the end zone to have a top 7 week in terms of PPR points. This week, it'll be Anthony Richardson back there at quarterback, which will probably make him more efficient on the ground, but then less efficient as a receiver, or at least less volume as a receiver, because we expect Joe Flacco, of course, to be checking the ball down as an immobile quarterback. But the Titans are 28th in rush defense DVOA against the running back position. So I think Sermon, with the fact that Richardson is playing and the fact that he is getting the majority of the carries for this team, could have an efficient day against the Titans in what should be a close divisional matchup. So I like Sermon this week as a good start. Rico Dowdle staying in that Detroit Lions and Dallas Cowboys game. The elephant in the room here is that the Lions defense defense have been pretty good against the run. It is the second lowest adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. However, Kenneth Walker right before their bye week had a monster game, and Rico Dowdle can get here based on the same blueprint. 52 point over-under, like I talked about, a high-scoring game environment. Sharps are on the over right now. Rico Dowdle set a career high last week with 22 opportunities, and he finally is commanding the majority of the rush attempts in this backfield and finally achieved over a 50% snap share. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of Rico Dowdle as the lead back in Dallas. Moving on to the final running back that I'm starting this week, that is Najee Harris against the Las Vegas Raiders. I get he's been kind of disappointing, but there is still lots of injuries in this running back core for Pittsburgh. Jalen Warren might return this week. He's been a limited participation in practice the last 2 days with his knee injury, but Cordero Patterson is likely out again. He has not practiced all week. Raiders are starting Aiden O'Connell. It's going to be baptism by fire facing this Steelers defense. I really do think that the Steelers can control this game, run the ball, good high volume script for Najee Harris. He has had at least 16 opportunities in every game this season, and I think this game will be no different. He'll probably run 15, 18, 20 times, and if you're running that much, you're probably going to have a pretty decent fantasy day. Raiders are 26th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, so maybe we see some efficiency here from Najee Harris, although he did have a pretty decent matchup last week and wasn't overly efficient against the Cowboys on Sunday night. So moving into the streaming quarterbacks and the streaming tight ends for the week, starting with the quarterback position, Kirk Cousins is the best streaming quarterback this week, in my opinion. Pretty simple rationale here. I already talked about kind of the game environment going up against the Carolina Panthers. It is a very easy matchup. It is a top 2 matchup for the fantasy quarterback position. So Cousins, fresh off of a monster 500-yard and 4-touchdown game on Thursday Night Football, gets an absolute gift with one of the easiest defenses in the league. The Falcons are also 6th in neutral script pass rate since week 2, so they've been really amping up the pass volume, which of course was something that we always wanted to see from this Falcons offense. This offense is starting to click, and also we are deep into Kirktober. And if you guys don't know, Kirk Cousins plays outstanding in October. I don't know what it is. He always plays really well in October, and it really helps when you have a matchup like this against the Carolina Panthers. So I am personally starting him in the Flock League. I have Mahomes on bye, so I picked up Kirk Cousins, and he is going into my starting lineup. And fuck, who knows? Maybe I'll be playing him after the bye because Mahomes isn't playing super well. Next up, we have Caleb Williams, also a very, very good streamer this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, I already kind of talked about the matchup, but he did have his first 300-yard passing day of what I expect to be a very strong career for Caleb Williams. I know Jaden Daniels is the talk of the town right now, but Caleb Williams is just starting to heat up, in my opinion. This game projects to be very, very high scoring. It's the 3rd fastest paced game on the slate, and also most of the sharp money is on the over, 72% of the cash this week. So dead last against fantasy quarterbacks are the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're also dead last against fantasy wide receivers. I like the Bears offense to have a field day in London, have some big plays, get the London fans excited. Caleb Williams to DJ Moore for a long touchdown, Caleb Williams to Rome Odunze for a red zone touchdown. I think that's the type of day we're looking at for Caleb. So if you need a quarterback, go ahead and pick him up. And closing out this video, we do have a couple tight end streamers here. Cade Otton against the New Orleans Saints, a very safe tight end streamer for those of you guys that may have Kelsey on bye and you're just looking for a decent day. Cade Otton gets the routes. The Saints are top 8 against fantasy wide receivers, and of course, Marshawn Lattimore will be glued to Mike Evans, so that might take him out of the game plan a little bit. And conversely, they are 29th in DVOA versus tight ends. They let Travis Kelce carve him up for a bunch of catches last week, and they are 22nd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. So I like Cade Otton to have a couple catches in this game. Maybe he finds the end zone. If you need a streaming tight end, I do think that he is a very good option, as is my final guy that we're going to talk about in today's video, Dalton Schultz, facing against the New England Patriots. Nico Collins, of course, going to be out for this game. He is dealing with that hamstring pull. He is actually on IR for the next 4 games. The pass defense DVOA from the Patriots defense is 28th against tight ends, but it is very strong against wide receivers. And Stephon Diggs, maybe Tank Dell, we don't know exactly who yet. I think it's going to be Stephon Diggs getting the Christian Gonzalez treatment given the pedigree that he has in the league. And Dalton Schultz maybe is the direct beneficiary of both Collins being out and the fact that Diggs or Dell, depending on where Christian Gonzalez is on any given play, could be taken out of that play as well. So I like Dalton Schultz to get some targets here. He's been getting really good usage all season long. It's just such a crowded wide receiver core, to the point that he hasn't really had a big game yet. And we know Dalton Schultz can produce. Whenever there's no targets in an offense, Dalton Schultz, plays at his best. So if I help you guys set your lineup, again, leave me a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. If you want my weekly rankings, my rest of season rankings, all of our bonus content is over on flockfantasy.com. Hit the link down below in the pinned comment to check that out. And you can also get our weekly start sit rankings for free when you sign up over on Underdog Fantasy, our official show sponsor. They have Boosttober events going on all month right now, and you can bet the higher or lower on a lot of your favorite players. It's very simple. You just bet the higher fantasy points, higher, passing yardage, whatever you guys are going after. You can definitely check that out. That is in the link down below in the pinned comment as well. You get our weekly start sit rankings for free when you sign up with code FSE, make a $10 deposit or more, and you actually also get up to $1,000 in bonus cash as well. So if that interests you, link down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.